She had always felt different. From the moment she could remember, the world seemed to look at her in a way that made her feel small, even when she was standing tall. People often whispered behind her back, sometimes even in front of her, using words that cut deeper than any knife. Too chubby, they would say, as if her weight defined her value, as if her laughter, her kindness, and her dreams didn't matter at all. The village where she lived was small and tightly knit. Everyone knew everyone else, and everyone seemed to have an opinion about her. The whispers followed her like shadows that would not leave. At school, it was even worse. Classmates would form groups and laugh together, sharing jokes she didn't understand, and games she wasn't allowed to join. During lunch, while other children ate together in clusters, she often sat alone on the edge of the yard, quietly opening her lunchbox and eating in silence. She watched the others' smiles and laughter and felt a hollow ache in her chest, a wish that she could be part of it, that she could feel accepted. Sometimes she tried to join in, offering a comment or asking a question, but her words were brushed aside or met with teasing. Even her own family, though loving in their way, sometimes failed to understand. Her parents often said she was just a little bigger than the others, or, "You'll grow out of it." But their words never felt like real comfort. They were meant to soothe, but instead, they reminded her that she didn't fit the mold that everyone else seemed to follow so easily. She would retreat to the corners of their small home, curling up on her bed, hiding her face in her hands, and letting silent tears fall. No one ever noticed those tears. No one seemed to care that she felt invisible, that she longed for someone to see her for who she really was, not just what her body looked like. She found small comforts wherever she could. Sometimes it was the gentle warmth of sunlight streaming through her bedroom window, or the soft rustle of leaves outside when the wind blew. Sometimes it was the quiet companionship of a stray cat that had appeared near her house, rubbing against her legs as if it understood her loneliness. These moments were small, but they were hers. They reminded her that the world wasn't entirely cruel, that there could be kindness somewhere, even if it didn't come from people. Despite the rejection, she had dreams. She imagined a life where she could walk freely without people staring or whispering, where she could laugh without fear, where friends would sit beside her, not just tolerate her presence, but welcome it. She dreamed of adventures in faraway places, of forests and mountains and rivers where nobody would judge her appearance. She imagined a world where she could simply exist and be valued for her heart, her mind, her spirit. But dreams were fragile. Every day, reality chipped away at them. The whispers, the teasing, the silent exclusion, they left scars that weren't visible but burned just as much as any physical wound. Each time someone turned away from her, laughed at her, or left her behind, it reminded her that she didn't belong. She tried to tell herself that she was strong, that she could survive this. But there were nights when the sadness was too heavy. She would lie awake in her small bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if life would always feel like this, lonely, cold, and unkind. One day, the feeling of abandonment reached a peak she had never known before. The school had organized a long walk through the woods, a kind of adventure day meant to teach children about nature. Everyone was excited, chattering and laughing as they walked in groups. She had hoped, foolishly perhaps, that this time would be different. Maybe someone would notice her. Maybe someone would offer her a place in their group. She had imagined herself smiling and walking alongside the others, feeling included, feeling part of something. But as the walk began, it quickly became clear that she would be left behind. The groups formed naturally, children pairing up with friends or forming small clusters. She approached a few groups, asking if she could join. But the answers were curt, dismissive, or downright cruel. "No, you're too slow," one boy said, barely hiding a smirk. Another girl laughed and said, "You'll just slow us down." Their words hit her like stones. She felt her chest tighten, her eyes fill with tears, but she forced herself to keep walking, hoping that maybe they would change their minds. They didn't. By midday, she was alone. The laughter and voices of her classmates faded into the distance, and the forest around her grew quieter, more intimidating. She walked as fast as she could, trying to catch up. But each step seemed to make her feel smaller, lighter, as if the world was trying to push her down, trying to make her disappear. She reached a small clearing and stopped, gasping for breath, realizing that she had no idea where she was. Panic rose in her chest. The forest that had seemed like an adventure now felt like a trap. She was alone, truly alone. For the first time in her life, the fear was overwhelming. She called out for help, her voice trembling. But no one answered. Only the rustling of leaves and the distant cawing of a crow responded. Her mind raced with thoughts she tried to push away. What if she never finds her way back? What if nobody comes for her? What if she is stuck here forever, unseen and forgotten? Her legs shook, and she sank to the ground, letting herself collapse into the soft moss beneath her. She curled into herself, hugging her knees, and finally allowed the tears she had been holding back to fall freely. She wept for the loneliness that had followed her all her life, for the constant feeling of being too much for everyone around her, for the hopelessness that now seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky, casting shifting shadows through the trees. She stayed where she was, too tired to move, too scared to hope. The forest seemed vast and unending. A world that did not care for her fears or her sadness. Yet even in her despair, a small spark remained, a faint whisper of hope that maybe someone would find her, maybe someone would see her, not as too chubby or too different, but as a person who deserved care, warmth, and kindness. She tried to keep herself occupied to hold on to that spark. She observed the birds flitting between branches, the squirrels scampering up tree trunks, the way sunlight dappled the forest floor. She remembered small lessons from her school books about plants and animals, identifying leaves and flowers as best she could. These small acts of attention gave her a fragile sense of control, a reminder that she was still alive, still capable of noticing beauty, still capable of being part of the world even if she felt unseen. As evening approached, the forest darkened, and the cold began to seep into her bones. She built a small shelter from fallen branches and leaves, doing her best to protect herself from the chill. Her stomach ached from hunger, but she had little choice but to wait and conserve her energy. She whispered to herself that she had survived tough days before, and that she could survive this one too. It was not much, but it was enough to keep her breathing, enough to keep her heart beating, enough to keep her hope alive. Through the long night, she stayed awake, listening to the sounds of the forest, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs. Every sound made her jump, but also reminded her that she was not entirely alone. She spoke quietly to herself, recounting memories of happier times, songs she had learned at school, stories she had read in books. These little moments of connection to the world beyond the forest were her lifeline. They reminded her that she existed, that she mattered, even when the world around her suggested otherwise. By the time the first light of dawn crept through the trees, she was exhausted, her body sore, her heart heavy, but she was still alive. That survival, alone in the forest, became a turning point. She realized that no matter what the world said about her, she had the strength to endure, to keep moving, to hope. She had endured years of rejection and isolation, and now she had survived a night in the forest on her own. Perhaps, she thought, this meant that she could endure even more, that she could find a way to belong, to be seen, to be valued. Though the path ahead was uncertain, she felt a faint glimmer of something she had never allowed herself to feel fully before: courage. She knew that the next steps would be difficult, that she would still face challenges and rejection. But for the first time, she believed that she had the power to face them. That belief, small and fragile as it was, became the seed for the hope that would carry her through the days to come. The first light of dawn barely touched the forest floor when she opened her eyes. Her body ached in places she hadn't even known could hurt. Her legs trembled, her back throbbed, and her stomach reminded her, with sharp pangs, that she hadn't eaten since the previous day. Yet, despite the pain, she knew she had to move. Staying in one place would only make her weaker. and she could not afford to give up, not yet. Somewhere, beyond the thick trees and tangled underbrush, she hoped there might be safety. She did not know where that safety could be found, but she clung to the tiny flicker of hope that had kept her alive through the long night. Her first task was to find food. She had seen birds peck at berries and squirrels nibbling on nuts, but she had never foraged for herself. She remembered some of what she had learned in school. Certain berries were safe to eat. Some plants were poisonous. She moved carefully, scanning the ground for anything edible. Her hands shook as she picked a few small berries, tasting them cautiously before swallowing. Their sweet juice was a small comfort, a reminder that life continued even in the harshest circumstances. She kept a small portion in her palm, nibbling slowly as she walked. Water became her next priority. She remembered a small stream she had passed near the clearing where she had spent the night. Moving toward it was harder than she imagined. The forest was dense, the ground uneven, and every step demanded more energy than she thought her body could provide. Branches scratched her arms and face. Roots threatened to trip her, and shadows seemed to twist and move as if the forest itself were watching her. Fear gripped her again, but she pushed through it, reminding herself that she had survived before and she could survive again. When she finally reached the stream, the cool, clear water brought an immediate relief. She knelt down, cupping her hands to drink, feeling the liquid slide down her throat and wash away some of the dryness and fatigue. She splashed a little on her face, letting the water refresh her, and for the first time that morning, she felt a small spark of energy. Even in the quiet of the forest, even in the loneliness that pressed on her heart, she found a reason to keep going. Survival, she realized, was a choice she had to make, moment by moment. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the forest began to hum with life. Birds sang from the treetops. Insects buzzed through the air, and small animals moved cautiously between the trees. She moved slowly, trying to remain aware of her surroundings. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed to hide danger. But she had learned to keep her senses sharp. Hunger gnawed at her, but she forced herself to ration the small handful of berries she had found. She remembered the stories of travelers who had survived in the wilderness, and she repeated those stories in her mind, imagining herself as brave and capable, even when her body felt weak. Hours passed, and fatigue began to weigh heavily on her. She found a small, sheltered spot under the roots of a fallen tree and rested. She leaned against the trunk, listening to the forest around her. The wind rustled the leaves, the occasional bird called from above, and somewhere in the distance, water trickled over rocks. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, allowing herself to breathe and regain strength. Yet even in rest, fear lingered at the edges of her mind. She wondered if anyone would find her, if anyone even knew she was missing. The thought of being alone forever pressed heavily on her chest. Despite the fear, she refused to give in. She reminded herself that she had survived the night, that she had found food and water, and that she had not given up. She thought about her dreams again, the life she had imagined beyond rejection, beyond loneliness. Those dreams gave her courage, gave her reason to move forward. She stood up, her legs shaky but determined, and continued through the forest, paying attention to the sounds, the smells, the small signs of life around her. As the day wore on, she faced challenges that tested her in ways she had never expected. A sudden rainstorm soaked her to the bone, chilling her and making the ground slippery. She struggled to find shelter under thick branches and moss-covered rocks, shivering as the cold seeped through her clothes. Her hunger grew more persistent, and she had to move cautiously to find more berries and nuts. Every step required effort, every breath felt heavy, but she pressed on, determined not to surrender to the fear and exhaustion. Nightfall approached again, and the forest grew darker and more mysterious. The shadows seemed longer, the sounds louder, and the chill more biting. She knew she could not remain in the open. She needed a safe place to rest. Using fallen branches and leaves, she built a small shelter, carefully arranging them to block the wind and create a barrier against the cold. She wrapped herself in the small blanket she had carried from home and huddled inside, trembling but alive. As she lay there, she whispered to herself, repeating words of encouragement. I am strong. I can survive. I will not give up. Hunger, fear, and exhaustion battled within her, but she refused to let them win. She thought about the kindness she had longed for all her life, imagining someone finding her, someone offering comfort and care. That vision of human kindness became a beacon of hope in the darkness. She repeated it like a prayer, clinging to the thought that one day, someone would see her, really see her, and offer the warmth she had always sought. The following days became a rhythm of careful survival. She learned to move quietly, to listen to the forest, and to find small sources of food and water. She discovered edible roots and plants, avoiding the ones she had learned were dangerous. She used fallen leaves and branches to make simple bedding and shelters. Each day, her confidence grew, though so did the awareness of her vulnerability. Every rustle in the bushes, every snap of a twig made her heart race, reminding her that the forest was alive with dangers she had never encountered before. Despite the constant challenges, she began to notice subtle signs of beauty and wonder in the forest. Sunlight filtering through the trees created patterns on the ground. Birds of vibrant colors flitted between branches, and the sound of flowing water became a soothing companion. These small moments reminded her that life was not entirely harsh, that even in the wilderness, there was beauty to be found. She held on to those moments, allowing them to strengthen her resolve and remind her of the world beyond fear. As she continued her journey, she reflected on the lessons she had learned about herself. She realized that she was stronger than she had ever imagined. Her body, though tired and aching, had carried her through danger and hardship. Her mind, though frightened, had remained sharp and aware, guiding her choices and actions. Her heart, though heavy with loneliness, had not lost the capacity to hope, to dream, to seek connection. These realizations became her armor against despair. One afternoon, as she rested near a small stream, she noticed subtle changes in the forest. Signs of human presence appeared, footprints in the mud, a faint glimmer of light reflecting off metal, the distant sound of voices. Her heart raced with both fear and anticipation. Could it be someone searching for her? Could it be help at last? She stayed hidden at first, cautious and uncertain, her mind racing with possibilities. Yet the faint hope that someone might come drew her forward, urging her to remain alert and ready. She continued her cautious journey, moving slowly and observing every detail. Hunger and fatigue were constant companions, but she refused to let them dictate her actions. She found small berries, drank from the stream, and built temporary shelters each night to conserve energy. Every day became a test of endurance. Every night a reminder of her vulnerability. Yet through it all, she held on to hope, that fragile spark that had guided her since the moment she had been left alone. As the days passed, she began to notice changes within herself. Fear no longer ruled her mind entirely. She could act with intention, make decisions that improved her chances of survival, and respond to challenges with careful thought rather than panic. Her body, though still sore and tired, grew stronger from constant movement. Her mind became sharper, learning patterns of the forest, recognizing safe paths, and identifying sources of food and water. Most importantly, her heart grew resilient, holding on to hope even when circumstances seemed grim. Through this experience, she discovered an inner strength she had never known. She realized that being alone did not mean being powerless. She could endure, she could survive. She could keep moving forward, even when the world seemed against her. Each day she survived became proof of her capability. Each night she rested became a testament to her resilience. The forest, once frightening and overwhelming, became a place of learning and growth, a place where she discovered the depth of her own courage. Though exhaustion and hunger never fully disappeared, she faced each day with determination. She learned to move quietly, observe carefully, and trust her instincts. She found small joys in the world around her, a bird landing nearby, sunlight streaming through the trees, the gentle sound of flowing water. These small wonders reminded her that life, even in the wilderness, could be beautiful and meaningful. And with each step she took, each challenge she overcame, She inched closer to a future where she could be safe, cared for, and seen. The forest had grown both familiar and strange to her. She knew where the streams ran, which plants were safe to eat, and how to find small shelters to rest at night. Yet, despite all the knowledge she had gained, she could not escape the nagging fear that she was still alone, truly alone, in a world that had abandoned her. Each step she took was careful. Each sound she heard made her jump. But she had learned to control the panic. She reminded herself that she had survived nights and days on her own, that her body and mind had proven strong enough to endure hardship. It was during one quiet morning, as the sun filtered through the treetops in golden beams, that she first noticed him. From a distance, she saw movement tall, steady, purposeful. He moved differently than the wild animals she had grown used to seeing. There was a deliberate calm in his steps, a sense of awareness that spoke of someone accustomed to being in the forest. Her heart raced. Fear surged first. Was he dangerous? Could he be a threat? She had learned to distrust humans, to believe that they would judge her or leave her behind. Yet, beneath the fear, a small, fragile hope began to stir. She watched him carefully, hidden behind the thick underbrush. He was a man, likely in his 40s, wearing simple but sturdy clothing, with a broad-brimmed hat shielding his face from the sun. His hands were strong, holding a long wooden stick that he used to steady himself as he walked. He seemed familiar with the forest, moving with ease, stepping over roots and stones without hesitation. She noticed the way he paused now and then, scanning the area, listening to the sounds around him. There was something kind in the way he moved, not hurried or threatening, but patient, careful, as if he respected the life of the forest and all who dwelled in it. For a long time, she stayed still, hiding, uncertain what to do. She remembered the lessons she had learned during her time alone. Humans could be cruel, but humans could also be kind. She wanted to believe he might be kind, but she could not be certain. Her body tensed, ready to flee at the first sign of danger. She stayed hidden, holding her breath, trying not to make a sound. The forest seemed quieter than usual, as if even the birds and insects had paused to watch this new presence. Eventually, he paused near a small clearing, kneeling down to examine something on the ground. She saw him pull out a small notebook, jotting down notes, perhaps tracking animal movements or marking points on a map. He moved slowly and carefully, almost as if he knew the forest would reward him with its secrets only if he respected it. She noticed the kindness in the way he touched the plants, gently brushing away leaves rather than stepping on them. His calm presence reassured her, and her fear began to mingle with curiosity. Could he be someone who might help her? For the first time in days, she allowed herself a quiet, almost silent hope. She thought about the stories she had imagined, the dreams she had held close to her heart, of being seen, of being cared for, of being understood. Could this man be the person who would finally make her feel safe? She did not move, did not call out. She waited, watching, hoping he might notice her, hoping he might see her not as too chubby or different, but as someone who needed care and kindness. Hours passed. The hunter moved through the forest, and she followed cautiously from a distance. She mimicked his steps, careful not to be seen, careful to remain hidden if necessary. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement. She could not remember the last time she had felt a spark of hope so strong. The forest, which had once seemed endless and threatening, now felt like a place of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, she would not be alone anymore. Eventually, the hunter stopped near a small stream. He set down a pack, pulled out some supplies, and began preparing food. The smell of cooked roots and herbs drifted through the air. Her stomach growled, reminding her of her hunger. She wanted to approach him, to ask for help, but fear held her back. What if he rejected her? What if he laughed at her, the way others had? She remembered every cruel word, every harsh glance, every moment she had felt too much for the world. And yet, the warmth she saw in his careful movements gave her courage to try. Finally, she took a deep breath and stepped forward, making herself visible, though still hesitant. Her legs trembled, and her voice was barely above a whisper. "Please, I need help." She could not look directly at him at first, afraid of what his expression might be. Her heart raced, and tears welled up in her eyes. She had never been brave enough to ask for help before. The words left her lips, trembling, but they were the first words of trust she had spoken in a long time. The hunter looked up slowly. At first, he seemed surprised, but his expression softened almost immediately. He took a careful step toward her, speaking in a gentle voice. "You don't need to be afraid. I'm not here to hurt you. Are you hurt? Hungry? Cold?" His questions were calm, patient, without judgment. She wanted to believe him, and she wanted to trust him. But the fear rooted in years of rejection made her hesitate. She stayed still, tears streaming down her face, her small body trembling from both cold and emotion. Seeing her fear, the hunter crouched down to her level, lowering his gaze so he would not seem threatening. "It's okay. You're safe now," he said softly. He offered her a piece of cooked root, holding it out as an invitation, not a demand. The gesture was simple, but it carried a weight of care and understanding that she had rarely experienced. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out and took it. The taste was plain, but it warmed her from the inside, and the act of accepting help felt like a step toward a new kind of life she had never imagined. She began to speak, haltingly at first, telling him about how she had been left alone in the forest, how she had survived by herself, how the loneliness had pressed on her heart for years. She told him about the whispers, the teasing, the isolation, and the pain of feeling like she did not belong. The hunter listened silently, never interrupting, never judging. He nodded occasionally, his eyes kind and attentive, showing her that her story mattered. By the time she finished, she was crying openly, letting all the bottled-up pain pour out. She had not cried like this in years. Every tear was a release of hurt and fear, every sob a reminder that she had survived, that she had endured, that she had not given up. The hunter reached out gently, placing a hand on her shoulder in a gesture of comfort. "You've been through a lot," he said softly, "but you're not alone anymore. I'm here now, and I will help you." His words, simple and sincere, struck a chord deep within her. For the first time, she felt the warmth of human kindness without fear or judgment. They stayed there for a while, sitting by the stream. The hunter offered her food, water, and warmth, speaking softly and encouragingly. He asked her about her family, her life before the forest, and her dreams. She answered cautiously at first, but the patience and care in his voice allowed her to open up more. She realized that she could trust him, that he saw her as a person, not as an object of ridicule. His presence was a shield against the harshness she had known all her life, and she clung to it gratefully. By evening, the hunter had prepared a small, safe place for her to rest. It was simple, but it was shelter, and for the first time in days, she felt warmth and security. She lay down on soft blankets, her body exhausted but her heart lighter. She realized that she had survived not just by her own strength, but by opening herself to the possibility of help, by allowing someone else to care for her. That small act of trust had changed everything. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt a mixture of relief and hope. She had been left alone, judged, and abandoned. But now, she had been found. Someone had seen her, truly seen her, and offered the kindness she had longed for. The forest, once a place of fear and struggle, had become the setting for her first encounter with genuine compassion. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but for the first time, she believed that she might not have to face them entirely alone. In the quiet of the forest, with the first stars beginning to appear above the trees, she allowed herself to dream again. She imagined a life where she could be safe, where she could be valued, where she could smile without fear. That night, wrapped in warmth and kindness, she realized that survival was no longer just about enduring the forest, it was about embracing hope, about trusting that someone could care, and about discovering that she was worthy of love and protection. The forest that had once felt vast, lonely, and frightening now seemed different. She looked around with new eyes, noticing the soft sway of the trees, the sparkle of sunlight on leaves, and the gentle murmur of the stream nearby. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of calm that was not mixed with fear. She had been found. And that simple fact changed everything. The settler hunter had shown her that people could care, that kindness existed, and that she had a right to feel safe. The world she had thought was cold and unkind now felt capable of warmth and possibility. Her days began to follow a gentle routine, one filled with simple but meaningful activities. The hunter taught her how to gather food safely, how to identify edible plants, and how to prepare small meals over a fire. These lessons were practical, but they also carried a deeper meaning. They showed her that she could rely on herself, that she could learn, grow, and contribute. Every day, she discovered a new strength within her, a resilience she had never fully recognized before. The hunter was patient with her, never rushing or demanding. He understood her fears, her hesitation, and the years of rejection that had made her wary of trusting others. He spoke to her gently, encouraged her to express her thoughts and feelings, and celebrated even the smallest achievements. She began to open up more each day, sharing stories of her childhood, her dreams, and even the pain she had carried for so long. In return, he shared stories of his own life, his experiences in the forest, and lessons he had learned about patience, courage, and kindness. Through these exchanges, a bond grew between them, one built on mutual respect and genuine care. She began to explore the surrounding forest with him, no longer with fear but with curiosity and excitement. Each step she took reminded her that the world held beauty and wonder, even in unexpected places. She marveled at the patterns of sunlight on the ground, the songs of birds, and the way the wind moved through the trees. These simple observations became sources of joy, small victories that reminded her of life beyond fear. Slowly, she started to feel a sense of belonging, a connection to the world that had always seemed out of reach. Her body, once weakened by fear and hunger, began to grow stronger. She could walk longer distances without exhaustion, gather food more efficiently, and build more secure shelters. She discovered muscles and strength she had never known, and with each accomplishment, her confidence grew. The challenges that had once seemed insurmountable now became opportunities to learn and improve. She began to believe in her own abilities, realizing that she was capable of far more than she had imagined. Alongside physical growth, her emotional healing progressed. She began to confront the pain of rejection that had haunted her for years. She remembered the harsh words, the exclusion, the moments of shame, but now she could face them without letting them define her. With the hunter's encouragement, she learned to speak kindly to herself, to acknowledge her worth, and to celebrate her strengths. She realized that being too chubby or different did not make her less valuable. It had never made her less valuable. That revelation brought a sense of liberation, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from her heart. Over time, she also discovered the joy of caring for others. She helped the hunter with daily tasks, looked after small animals they encountered, and nurtured plants and herbs they gathered. These acts, simple as they were, gave her a sense of purpose. She realized that she could contribute, that her presence mattered, and that kindness was not only something to receive but also something to give. Each day, she felt more connected, more alive, and more confident in her place in the world. The hunter also introduced her to the nearby village gradually. At first, she was nervous, afraid of judgment and rejection. But with his guidance, she learned to interact with the villagers, to observe their customs, and to share small pieces of herself. To her surprise, some villagers welcomed her warmly, intrigued by her experiences and moved by her resilience. She realized that the world was not entirely unkind, that there were people who could see beyond appearances, who could value character and heart over looks. Each positive encounter strengthened her confidence and reinforced the lessons she had learned in the forest. Trust, patience, and kindness could create a safe space, even in a challenging world. She also found ways to express herself creatively. She drew pictures of the forest, wrote stories about her adventures, and sang songs she had remembered from childhood. These expressions were not for anyone else but herself, a way to process emotions, celebrate her journey, and reclaim her voice. Through art and storytelling, she discovered joy, freedom, and a deeper understanding of herself. Each creation became a small testament to her growth, a record of her courage, and a celebration of her identity. Evenings became a time for reflection and quiet joy. She and the hunter would sit by the fire, sharing stories, watching the stars, and simply enjoying each other's presence. Those moments, filled with warmth and understanding, reinforced the sense of safety and belonging that had been missing from her life for so long. She realized that love and trust could exist without conditions, that she could be valued for who she was, rather than judged for what she looked like. This realization was transformative, reshaping her view of herself and the world around her. As weeks turned into months, she grew more independent. She could gather food, maintain a shelter, and navigate the forest confidently. Yet, she never lost the sense of connection she had developed with the hunter. Their bond deepened, built on shared experiences, mutual respect, and the understanding that they had both faced challenges and grown stronger through them. She learned that relationships could be a source of strength, that support and guidance could help her thrive without diminishing her own abilities. One day, as she looked at her reflection in the stream, she hardly recognized the girl she had once been. Her eyes, once clouded with fear and sadness, now shone with confidence and resilience. Her posture, once hunched and tentative, now radiated strength and pride. She realized that she had transformed not just physically or emotionally, but entirely her sense of self. Her understanding of the world, and her belief in her own worth, had all evolved. She smiled at her reflection, acknowledging the journey she had taken and the courage it had required. With this new sense of self, she began to dream bigger dreams. She imagined helping others who felt alone or rejected, sharing her story to inspire courage and hope. She wanted to be a source of kindness, a witness to resilience, and a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there could be light. Her past pain, once a burden, had become a foundation for empathy and understanding. She realized that her experiences, though difficult, had given her a unique perspective that could touch the lives of others. The forest remained a place of learning and wonder, but it was no longer a place of fear. She moved through it with confidence, respect, and appreciation. She noticed the smallest details, the curve of a leaf, the pattern of sunlight on moss, the call of a distant bird, and found joy in them. Each observation reinforced the beauty and interconnectedness of life, reminding her that she belonged not only to the forest but also to the broader world she had once feared. Through this journey, she understood the importance of patience, trust, and perseverance. She realized that transformation did not happen overnight, that healing required time, effort, and support. She learned to forgive herself for the years of doubt and fear, to acknowledge her worth, and to embrace the person she had become. This realization brought a profound sense of peace, a quiet confidence that she could face any challenge, and the courage to continue her journey with hope and determination. As the story of her life continued to unfold, she no longer saw herself as too chubby or too different. She saw herself as strong, resilient, and capable. She saw the power of kindness, the strength of hope, and the importance of trust. She understood that while the world could be harsh, it could also be compassionate, and that she had the ability to create a life filled with love, acceptance, and purpose. In the warmth of the forest home she shared with the hunter, she embraced a life of possibility. Each day became an opportunity to learn, grow, and connect. Each challenge became a chance to demonstrate her strength and courage. Each small act of kindness, whether given or received, became a reminder that life could be beautiful and meaningful. And with each passing day, she felt a sense of belonging, a feeling she had longed for all her life, now fully realized. She had been left to die alone, judged, and abandoned. But she had survived. She had been found, cared for, and taught to see her own worth. Her journey had been difficult, but it had led her to a place of safety, love, and hope. She had transformed from a lonely, fearful girl into a strong, confident young woman, capable of facing life with courage, compassion, and resilience. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had the strength, wisdom, and heart to overcome them.